Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But it comes at a price. Samantha Horwitz and John Salerno work with police departments across the country to bring valuable recovery, insight resources, and workshops. A Badge of Honor TV brings those professionals to you so we can come together and revitalize communities through a better understanding of what's at stake and what's required for repair. So take a load off and turn up your TV. It's about to get real.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam. It's Mental Health Monday and a beautiful day as here in Texas. It's not raining anymore. Finally, it's stopped and we got some decent weather. Want to wish you, Sam, a very, very happy Mother's Day. I hope you enjoyed it yesterday.
Thank you. I took a little mental health break myself because as we talk about on the show, you know, when you need to refill your cup, it is not selfish because you're able to give more. It's also Mental Health Awareness Month and Memorial May. And there is so much, I'll call it to bring awareness to, because let's face it, since 2019, I think things have gone very much sideways. And whether you're talking about just mental health in general or the space that we operate in addition to our guests in serving our first responders and veterans in that, it's very important that we take the time to really understand what that means.
Yeah, and you know, when you say that you have to fill your cup and you have to take time for yourself, and it's not, and it's so hard when you're used to giving so much to others, you really forget how to take care of yourself. Me included. I know you do the same thing. It's a tough battle that within ourselves. It's especially when we come from a servant's heart. It's hard to take care of ourselves. It's like taking a nap. You feel guilty that you're wasting the day away.
Yeah, I'm laughing, but it's so true, because when we get to a point where we're not on the job actively anymore, it's like, oh, I actually can lay down for 20 minutes.
Yeah. Hey, before we bring our guests in, I wanted to share this at our workshop, and I don't know if you've seen it. There was a podcast on, actually a video that Scott House did. You know Scott House, right?
Scott House.
I'm maybe saying his name wrong. Travis House. Travis House. He did a video the other day, and I want to share it with all listeners because it really was heartfelt. And he said, "Which officers do you pray to?" Right? And he brought up a great point. He said, when an officer in the line of duty gets shot, right, all of our law enforcement community rallies around that police officer. They run to the hospital and they wait outside the emergency room. We've all seen the pictures. Guys out there praying, holding hands, and hoping that officer is going to be okay. When that officer is released from the hospital, there's a walkout, a line of officers that cheering him on and clapping, and as the nurses wheel him out in the wheelchair. When an officer, that's another officer, checks himself into a mental health facility to get mental health treatment, there's nobody there but his family. He goes in alone. When he comes out of that mental health facility, he comes out alone. Why can't our law enforcement brothers and sisters surround and embrace the ones that are out there looking to get mental health treatment? Why can't we be outside that mental health facility cheering our brother and sister on, going, "God bless you, brother, you're getting your mind fixed"? And then when he comes out, do the same thing. We do it when an officer is shot or hurt or injured, anytime in the line of duty, at the hospital, at the ER. We can do the same thing as they enter those mental health facilities. And I thought Travis brought such a great point up. Which officer do you pray for? And he did a great job. Thank you, Travis, for sharing that. If you're hearing this, I had to share your message to get to our people, to get that message out. And I thought it was very, very to the point, man. It was heartwarming, heartfelt, I guess would be the word.
Yeah, that's a super valid question, and we need to live that thin blue line family. I don't know what you want to call it. We need to live that.
You know,
right?
if we're all taking an injury.
We only do it when it's convenient.
Well, no, we do it. That officer who gets shot or gets into the car accident or gets injured in the line of duty, he's hailed a hero, and God bless him. Yes, he should be. But that officer that checks himself into the mental health facility for 30 or 60 or 90 days to get the drug treatment or the alcohol treatment or the mental health treatment that he needs, he is also a hero because he's being brave to go get that help that he needs. And we should support that. We should support that, just like if it was a shooting or a car accident or chasing a perp type of injury.
Absolutely, we should, and that's why we're all here tonight doing what we're doing, to shed more light and understanding about that battle. And I think it now is a perfect time to bring on our guest, Scott Hyder. He is the founder of Hidden Battles Foundation, and he served U.S. Army vet and law enforcement officer. I'm not going to take up much more time telling his story. Without further ado, let's bring out Scott Hyder. Welcome to A Badge of Honor TV.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, thanks, man. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, welcome.
I know you guys want to go into my introduction, but before I forget, let me sum up why Travis's theory is going to be squashed. I agree with him 100%. However, what we as law enforcement do is we minimize other people's struggles. When we see something like mental health, a back injury, a knee injury, we literally will go, oh, what, this guy or whatever. But when it's a bullet shot or a gunshot wound or whatever, that's when it's real to them. It's visual, opposed to us not seeing a torn ACL or a blown out back or your mental health issues. And I think that's what the problem is.
You're right. When we turn around and we say this at our workshops, that trauma has no value. Trauma is trauma. You could see somebody get their hand slammed in a door, or you could see somebody shot and killed. It affects each individual differently, right? Yeah. Along with the injuries, a torn ACL could be more traumatic than a gunshot wound to the shoulder or a graze or you're 100% right, Scott. We have to start looking at these injuries as injuries in a whole and not minimize them by the injuries that they are.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
good point. Thank you.
Yeah, don't compare struggles. I mean, my struggle could not be any less than your struggle. And I think when we finally get past that, I think we can actually start to break that stigma, because that's the way it is.
Yep. 100%.
Absolutely. So, Scott, tell everybody watching and listening on their favorite podcast app a little bit about your background.
So I'm obviously a Bostonian. If you can tell by the way I talk.
No, say
car. Say car. Say car.
I got Boston. I got New York.
Yeah, it's tough. Listen, we get taxed so much we can't even pronounce some letters like H and R. So I am an Army veteran. I originally started as infantry, and then I changed it over and became a combat engineer. I spent 10 years in the Army. I actually was deployed to the Balkans in 2001. I came home and suffered a neck injury, which was the reason that I actually got out of the military in 2002. In 2003, I became a police officer, and I did almost 20 years as a police officer until my career was ended in a cruiser crash, which goes to the stigma of what we were talking about. When I got injured, I instantly could not feel my left arm. And when that happened, I didn't want to go to the hospital because of that. I didn't want people to think that I was the broke D, because that's what you do. You get labeled. So, I had been in a cruiser crash before where I broke my clavicle, and I came back in 3 weeks because I didn't want to be that guy. I was afraid to be labeled. So when I hurt my neck, I was actually ordered to get in the ambulance and go get seen. And that was January 2017. On February 2019, they actually medically retired me. But I didn't hear from anybody. The only time I heard from anybody was shift bids. People would call me up. Hey, how you doing? How's the family? And then they would say to me, hey, what shift you bidding? And we did every 6 months. So I got 4 calls in that 2 years I was out.
Wow.
But it happens. It happens. You don't want to be associated with somebody who may be taboo. Now, keep in mind, I'm neck injury. I literally have scars from surgeries. But think about the mental wounds. They're not visible. And that's where people try to stay away from people, unless you get the real people real, your real officers, your real soldiers or whatever, or your real firefighters who are there because they understand. And that's the big issue. And when we get over that, that's when I think the stigma will disappear. When we actually truly believe that the thin blue line is there and the red line is there, and we start to support each other without judgment.
Well, let me ask something, Scott, your opinion.
The key.
Where do you think this stems from? Do you think it's the boots on the ground guys, or do you think it's the way the departments run? Because each department runs a little different.
Yeah.
Some are more in tune than others. But do you think it's on a chief level, on a political level in that city or state, or is it the attitude of the officers on the street?
Honestly, I think the suck it up buttercup mentality is going away. That was a huge issue. Now I think it is that police departments, fire departments, EMTs, whatever, they're run as a business, and when you start costing money, you are now something that is not favorably looked upon. And it really depends on where you sit in the hierarchy of your department. I mean, if you're very well liked and you're a hard charger and you're on 4 or 5 different teams and you're, a specialty guy and you get hurt, there's more apt that you're going to get supported that way, opposed to being that guy who kind of, like, lack of better terms, hide and seek for $1,000 a week. And he's not really the most aggressive police officer. She's not the most aggressive police officer. And then they go to that hard call. And then, it's not necessarily the job all the time. A lot of mental health issues stem from the home life and finances, relationships. You have adolescent trauma. You have, sexual assault. There's a whole bunch of things that are catalysts to mental health. But then you become in an occupation that you are 400 times more susceptible to see a traumatic event than you are the normal person. And it starts building up. But I honestly think that it's case by case. Some departments, New York, NYPD, Boston, PD, they get it. Their peer support units are unbelievable, But you go to smaller towns where they just can't afford to leave guys behind.
I gotta disagree.
It's kind of interesting opposite here in Texas. The bigger the department, the bigger the issues, where we're seeing NYPD in Chicago especially more and more. We got to take our first break. Scott,
Sure.
When we come back, let's talk about how Hidden Battles was formed.
Okay.
Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
Forget Zoom, try Meetin. Meetin is a brand new video meeting service. And not only is Meetin simpler and easier to use and more powerful, Meetin also has the right values. Here at Meetin, we believe in freedom. We believe in privacy. We believe in America. And we are apolitical. Now, to get your free forever version of Meetin, just go to meetin.com, spelled this way, and then where it says promo code, type in the word special. That's your promo code, okay? So go to meetin.com, type in the word special, and you'll get Meetin free forever. I'm Rick Raditz, and I look forward to serving you as a customer of Meetin.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam. We have Scott Hayden with
Hyder.
Hyder. I don't know why I got Hayden in my mind. Hyder. I think you spelled Hayden on my on the tag. I got to close that out. Hyder with Hidden Battles Foundation. Scott, you're a retired law enforcement, 20 years, retired Army, 10 years deployed. You medically discharged from a neck injury. And before we left, we were discussing the routes of the value of either trauma or the injury and the officer involved. And, that when we take away the stigma and we make everybody equal again, no matter what their job assignment is, I don't care if you're on the job and you school crossing, but you still wear that patch. You're still putting yourself in that line of duty danger. You should be valued as such. And that's what, when we talk about, like you said, about the previous traumas that we've all sustained between either financial, stresses, financial, relationships, childhood, Hidden Battle Foundation helps you get through those and identify those different traumas that may have led up to a trauma job related, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. What we do is we are non-clinical, although we have clinicians in our, in our grasp and at our resource. We are more therapeutic. So what we do is we bring a bunch of people together, like-minded, into situations and events, classes, activities. And what we do is we make it a safe environment that for them to not fear that something they say or something they feel is going to be judged, or what I call the gasp effect. Like when they're like, oh, this reminds me of that time this happened. And someone goes, huh? Because as soon as you get that, you're done talking. Realistically, only one other profession other than a public servant, whether it be a fireman, EMT, police, is going to be introduced at a barbecue is doctor, right? When you get introduced at any barbecue, it's, hey, this is Scott the cop, or this is whoever the doctor. And then we hear about stories we don't want to hear about. I don't want to hear about a parking ticket or a speeding ticket or your neighbors. And that's what happens. And eventually what happens is we tend to shut down. And then we start to exclude ourselves from going to the cookouts. Veterans, when they come home, they don't want to go to a cookout and hear, how bad was the deployment? Did you kill anybody? We don't want that. So what we've done is we've developed a program where it's like-minded people, where you're not going to get that conversation. And if you get that conversation, it usually starts off with, hey, you're new here. Everything cool? How you doing with transitioning? And with us, we don't do it all. We do activity-driven therapy for mental health. However, we've partnered up with so many different organizations. We showcase them on my radio show. But one of the things is it takes so much courage to finally ask for help. And if somebody comes to us and says, hey, these are the problems I have, I'm never going to say, well, that's not us. That's not our mission. I've educated myself to the point that I can steer them in the right direction so that they'll never be afraid to ask for help again.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's a big thing.
That's huge. That's huge. Now, going back after you got out, I'm sure like forming an organization was the furthest from your mind, but these struggles and these battles touched you personally. So can you go into a little bit about your brother
absolutely.
and the formation of the foundation?
So back in 2010, we were down at Police Memorial Week. An officer in the town next to us had passed away, and they were putting his name on the wall. So we had gone down there, and on, I believe it was a Saturday night, we had come back from the FOP tent, and we had gotten a call that one of our coworkers had taken his life. And he was an Air Force vet. He was a retired cop, but he came back and started working as a dispatcher. And we all sat around, and he was the life of the party. He was, never, ever we would have thought it was this guy. And he was going through some stuff, and we all started feeling bad. Like, what could we have done? We should have been there for him. But there was an IA involved, and we didn't want to get taboo and get dragged into it. And you kind of like you distance yourself from stuff like that. So what we did is we said, why don't we do this? Why don't we do a fundraiser? We'll raise some awareness. We'll raise some money in his honor. We'll help with some bills, whatever. So that started my mental health journey for suicide prevention. 2 years later, my brother had called me up, and he was going through a lot of stuff. And my brother, like I said, a lot of adolescence trauma. My brother was a 30-year corrections officer. He retired from the corrections department.
Wow.
And what happened was my brother, there was a bunch of prescription medications involved. He was drinking. He was going through a bad divorce. And he had called me up, and I was on a police detail. And you can't talk on your cell phone on police details, at least where I worked. So I get a call, and he said, you know what? I'm done with this. I can't do it anymore. I think I'm going to move to Florida. So I said, you got to do what you got to do. Like, you want a fresh start? That's what you got to do. And he said, that's what I'm going to do. He goes, I appreciate it. He goes, and I love you for supporting me. And I said, whatever makes you happy is what you got to do. About an hour after that, my brother took his life. And I found him a couple days later after not hearing from him. And my brother was that kid that, once again, charismatic, outgoing, life of the party, fun. But I had missed every sign. And me and my sister had actually intervened twice. And he had gotten help on his own, voluntarily gone, took a 5-day program, went in and said, oh, yeah, my problems aren't what these guys' problems are. I feel I'm very lucky that I have the problems I have compared to other people. So after my brother had taken his life, I really started getting involved in suicide prevention. But you know what I was doing? I was ignoring my own trauma. I was ignoring the murders, the suicides at work, the car crashes, the CPR, dealing with my own adolescent trauma. I never ever dealt with that, and I started suffering for it. My work performance started slacking. I was sleeping in. I was showing up late. I was burning through sick time. From being awards, I started getting reprimanded. And nobody saw it. Nobody knew what was going on with me, and not even myself, because it's easy to look in than it is to be where I am and to see how bad I was going. So in 2017, I was hurt in January, laying on my back, and my mental health just declined. I wasn't getting off the couch. I started doing things around the house, but what I would do is I would lay on the couch all day until about an hour before my wife got home. And like I said, my left hand was really inoperable. I would wait about half an hour before my wife got home, and I would clean the house, do laundry. I would start making dinner. I would have my son up and doing stuff. And I should write a book on just how to do those tasks alone, and I'd become a millionaire. But what happened was I was hiding that whole thing, and I was making excuses. Like, I got nothing else going on. I don't know if I'm going back to work, because I honestly didn't. I didn't know if they were going to take me back to work. I didn't know if my career was over. There was just too much. So it started settling on me. So it was the perfect storm for me. It came to the point where I was afraid to reach out to fellow police officers because, one, nobody ever called on me to see if I was okay. Two, I was afraid of unfit for duty, which is that wonderful term up here in the Northeast that says you are mentally not able to be a police officer or a firefighter, and that's when they get rid of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was afraid to reach out. So what I did is I reached out to one of my Army buddies. By chance and by divine intervention, it turns out that my Army buddy, who was a fitness nut, worked at a gym in Baltimore City, trained professional athletes, also volunteered his time at the suicide prevention hotline. And when I called him, I said, I am not in a good spot. And he said, yeah, no expletive. You are fat and you need to get off the couch. Like, what are you doing? And it was the tough love I needed. And I said, I got a broken neck. He's like, your legs work? I said, yeah. He's like, get up and start moving. I was like, okay. So I got out. I started rucking, which is, for people who don't know, rucking is a military term for backpacking with weight. At the time, I had a young son. I just threw him in my rucksack and my GP medium, and I would go rucking with him. And I started to feel really good. I then started putting out on social media that this is what I was going through, only on veterans groups, though, never on a police group or in my public, Facebook page. But I wrote, this is what I'm going through. I hope I'm not the only one. If you're out there, come with me. And by about 6 weeks, I had about 20 veterans joining me with their rucksacks, and we were doing 5Ks on Wednesday nights.
Wow,
so
amazing.
Yeah, so I sat there and I said, this is bigger than just me. And I think we need this because other people are suffering too. And we are suffering in silence, and we're afraid to talk about stuff. And not even that, but veterans, we need to find where we belong when we get out. Mm-hmm. Same thing with post-retirement in law in public service. Mm-hmm. What you have to reinvent yourself. It's task and purpose. What do I do next? Because that was our identity. 24 hours a day, that's what you did as a firefighter. 24 hours a day, you're a firefighter. And if you don't believe me, ask them. They'll tell you. Yeah. But but police officers, right? We do that. We take overtime and details to pay for Disney, to pay for the lake house, to pay for the new car, to pay for college. And it becomes our identity. But when we get out, what do we do with ourselves? And the same goes for veterans. Veterans get out. They don't know where they belong. They have gallows humor. Everything is dark. They laugh about things that nobody else will laugh. They have experiences nobody other than a veteran would ever have. And when you get a 19 and a 20-year-old or a 24-year-old, they have nothing in common with the 19 to 24-year-old because they've never kicked down a door in a foreign country. Right. They've never been on a patrol in a foreign country. So when we did that organically, I started to create the Hidden Battles community. And one night, my wife's like, so we should do something. You always wanted to do something for your brother. Let's start a scholarship program. And I said, all right, we'll do that. But in the middle of the night, reflecting on my brother, I said to him, man, he was fighting a hidden battle that just nobody saw. And I was like, that's it.
Hidden battles. Yeah.
And I said to my wife, I said, it's got to be hidden battles. And she's like, oh, I like that. And then I found out that there was no other nonprofits that had Hidden Battles Foundation. And like I said, we started with the scholarship. And then we just got a lot of money, and we sat back and said, what programs would help, grab these individuals and take them out of the darkness and out of their couches and wherever they are, where they can be with like-minded people again and feel comfortable, exchange stories, and even decompress by telling traumatic stories and letting them out, kind of like a CISM, like a critical incident stress management.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we come back from our next break, I think it's important to touch on you being home injured, not sure if you're going to go back, and the fit for duty stuff, because we hear about that all the time. We'll be back right after these messages, folks. Stay tuned.
Look, when you need to respond to an aggressive situation to protect yourself, your family, or your property, understanding your firearm and legal position are critical. Officers know your skills are only as good as your commitment to training. So know what you're doing. So when you're in a vulnerable situation, we can count on your response. Whether you're a beginner or a licensed gun carrier, Carry in Texas offers basic firearms training, Texas permitless carry courses, license to carry, and basic 2A courses so you can understand the responsibilities, situational awareness, and learn the technical skill required when you carry your firearm. Go to carryintexas.com to find the right course for you. Join me, former United States Secret Service agent Samantha Horwitz, on the range for beginner basics, LTC prep, and range practice. Go to carryintexas.com today. That's carryintexas.com.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam on this Mental Health Monday. Scott with Hidden Battles Foundation, veteran, former Leo. Before we left, we were talking about how your foundation gave birth, how it grew to what it's grown to now. But you said something during the birth of this that me and Sam talk about a lot. You said nobody noticed that you were one of those officers who was getting the awards, and we bring this up, that was getting the awards, and then all of a sudden you're sleeping in, you're burning through sick time. Now you are on the opposite side of that model police officer. Now you are that one that they're trying to hide in the basement. Mm-hmm. This is where I see a lot of failures with our the chiefs and bosses.
Well, even our partners.
Or even the partners. But a chief is in charge of his whole command, right? Now, if you had books, like we run foundations, right? If there's discrepancy in our money or in our donations or in our books, we identify it and we find out what the issue is. We find out what the cause is, right? Chiefs who run departments should be doing the same thing. They have to evaluate each individual. They have to look, and if they see that deviation in a person, have that conversation. Hey, is everything okay at home? Is finances okay? Is the relationship okay? Are you battling? What could I do to help? Right? Just that conversation alone can swing a guy from the basement back up to top cop, knowing that his boss has his back. We always say about having your six, right? Have it all the time, not just in battle, but in the hidden battles.
But Scott, you also, the difference here is that you also had a physical injury. Yes, right. You can talk about, you don't want to be that cop, but you have no feeling in your arm. There is a point where it's like, when you say nobody checked in on you, John and I, we were like, what? How you are physically injured on duty. You are at home after surgeries and nothing. And that's when you're left with social media.
Mind. And perception's everything. I would say, like I said to I'm out, and this is, June-ish. I'm out 6 months after my injury, and I'm out walking around, and I have my son, and people are like, look, he's not hurt. He's out walking around. He's doing this. Like, I'm not in a wheelchair. Like, and that's the thing. And a lot of people didn't understand that, even to the point that at the time, my deputy chief called me up and he says, it doesn't look good that you're out, at the lake. We have a lake house. Like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to stay home and hide in the shadows? Like, life goes on. And if anything, that was helping my mental health.
Yeah.
But when I started to think about people and how they were thinking about me and, oh, he's faking. Now it's like, well, I'm not faking because I have a hard time. being a police officer, you train yourself to do everything with the opposite hand because you want to keep your hand ready for your weapon if you need it, right? So everything I was doing was with my left hand because my right hand needs to be readily acceptable to protect me. So now I'm starting to learn how to do things again. And in the back of my mind, I'm really letting what my peers and my coworkers are thinking about me. And it's that. And it was like, I was not that guy who, I'd fake a knee injury or whatever. I would hobble into work and I would go on my shift. If my back was hurting, I would go to work. I was a DOT guy. I did trucks, but I was still creeping under trucks doing inspections with my back hurting, and it's just the way it is. But then when I got hurt, it was like nobody talked to me. The first 2 weeks, somebody would check on me, whatever. And then after that, it was taboo. And I found out that a lot of guys were minimizing my struggle. Oh my God. Oh, come on. It wasn't even that bad.
How do you minimize a broken neck?
The thing was they
and the surgeries,
Yeah. And they were like, oh, there wasn't, the airbags never went off in the cruiser. Well, that was because they were never hooked back up. Like, there's a reason. So when you start to think about that and you think about my mental struggle, because I was the guy who was always there for somebody. If anybody needed anything, they were like, oh, hey, I need help, draining my pool. I'll be right over. Hey, I was a plumber at one time in my life. So people would call me up. Hey, I need help with plumbing. I would head right over. And I never charged any of the guys I worked with. But yet when I needed help, there was nobody. And and I'm not crapping on my old department. I think it was just a lack of knowing what to possibly do.
But that plays psychological issues with your head. I can't imagine, I can't imagine you were this guy that was always there. And now, you expect, it's not that you expect, but you kind of want that phone call to say, hey, just thinking about you, just checking on you. And when you don't get that, man, I can't imagine how devastating that feels within you.
And it came to the point too, like I said, where I would see my caller ID and it would be somebody I worked with. And then I would pick it up like, hey, and they're like, hey, how you doing? Things look good. Son's getting big, daughter's getting big. I'm like, thanks. They're like, hey, so how you bidding? And I'm like, well, that was the reason for the call. The rest of it was lip service,
Right.
But yeah, it stunk. It was that. And like I said, I had to resort back to my military buddies, people who I knew would pick up the phone when I needed it. And they did.
But Scott,
yeah,
we got over 1 million law enforcement officers across the country. How many do you think are battling that same fight that don't have the strength that you have or some support and family to get yourself off the couch, or those veteran buddies to get you off the couch? There's got to be so many other officers out there right now battling that same exact thing.
You know what, John? I jokingly say this too. I said, my mother lied to me when she told me I was unique. Like, there are so many more of us out there. And I meet them every day. I get calls from them every day. I get calls from all over the country for struggling firefighting. I'm just going to call them my heroes, from our heroes struggling, saying, I can't find a peer unit anywhere where I am. And I'll say, give me 10 minutes. I will find you something. And a lot of it is not the fact it's lazy. I want to say that it's lack of motivation. Like, they're at rock bottom, that they're actually calling somebody, to the point that they look up something and it's not the first thing they find. And they go, look, nobody's doing anything for us. And there's a lot of that.
You're right. And that's what, talking to other organizations involved in, I'll say, our business, is like, if you have a lengthy application process, that's not going to work for our heroes that need help right there. They need to pick up the phone and they need someone to talk to immediately, because you're so exhausted, and it's that mental acuity that you need at that moment to fill out an application. That is not there. You are trying to fight something from being at the absolute bottom. So hey, if you're tuning in, we're talking to Scott Hyder from Hidden Battles Foundation. If you run a foundation, if you're in a nonprofit and you've got an application process, just heads up, because we talk about this all the time. Scott, what you guys have set up, your website, it's full of information, but when you click on things, it's like, boom, it's right there. Somebody can get in touch with you. And you guys have a radio show. And, you know, thank you for coming on, because right after our TV show, you're jumping on to the radio. So, you know, you're talking about this. It's part of your life because you lived it. Your brother, him taking his life, you're not leaving people behind. You're helping people understand that they're more than what's going on up here, their hidden battle. And it really is, you're also getting them off the couch, because like this Saturday, you have an event, 22 for the 22. Let's quickly touch on that.
So the 22 for the 22 is a choose your own distance ruck march. You know, 22 is symbolic with the number of veterans daily that take their lives on average. So what we did is, this started back in right at COVID hit. On Veterans Day, we used to go to all the nursing homes, and we would hang out, and we would have coffee and donuts with all the really old, you know, World War II Korean veterans, because a lot of them don't get any visitors. So what we do is we'd go in, have coffee, donuts with them, just have conversation, rile them up a little by asking them whose vessel was better, you know, so stuff like that. When COVID hit and we couldn't go into any nursing homes, I selfishly said, I have to do something because I need something to keep me going. It was just, that was a big part. I loved engaging the old guys, you know, the greatest generations. You had to. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ruck 22 miles, and I'm going to go, and every so many miles, I'm going to hit up one of the war monuments. I'm going to go on Facebook. I'm going to do a live feed. I'm going to talk about this individual. And, you know, coming from up here, you know, we have the Civil War monuments. We have War on Terror monuments, Vietnam. So I had a lot of little monuments I go to. So I started hopping on my training ones. I would go 8 miles, and I would go to 4 different monuments. And then it started to gain traction. People like, hey, I want to jump in on this 22-mile thing that you're going to do. So eventually, we ended up having 87 people do it the first time we did it. We did it November 22nd in the year 2000. When we started, it was 35 degrees. We're doing it in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. When we finished, it was 14 degrees. It had snowed on us. We had windburn, hypothermia. It was bad. So I was like, maybe we're onto something. I sent out a survey monkey saying, hey, what could we have changed? And people said, make it warmer. I said, all right, we will. So what we did, we do it the weekend before Memorial Day every year. So now it is a 22K because we don't feel like killing anybody. It is literally, you can go a mile, you can go 22. We have spots stopped at a 5K and a 10K. We have mobile support. We also have a bus that'll pick anybody up. And there is no shame in the game. And what I like about it, it's not a race. You get out there and you talk to other people, and you're going to meet other people. And I have a Phoenix tattoo on my leg. And I saw one particular individual struggling, and she had a Phoenix tattoo. So I created a conversation. And when I talked to her, she was a therapist that actually worked with veterans, was not a veteran. And she said that she was there for her because she would endure so much trauma by listening to the veterans and absorbing their problems, that she was there for her. She said she was going to do 1 mile. She made it all the way to about 8 miles. She was dedicated. And it was great because I got to hear that story. And then what happens is myself and one of my partners in Hidden Battles, we ruck at the same speed. And we would pick up people. And if they're by themselves, we would walk with them until we grabbed another group, and then we'd pass them off. So now people start to engage each other. So it's really a celebration of being, like I said, like-minded people. You're all out there to support mental health and to support those heroes who may be struggling. At the end of the ruck, we have live music, we have free food. We encourage you to bring a tent or a blanket or chairs. Sit down, engage yourself with other veterans. We have a couple different nonprofits that are there. And it only costs $25 to help us cover some of the food. But that is the only event that we charge any money for. You know, we do over 100 events a year, whether it be informational events or public speaking or kayak trips or anything. And everything is free except for the 22 for the 22. And actually, any money that we make past what we needed to recoup our services for the day actually funds the 22 kayak, which is in July. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of opportunities for people to get involved. We got to take a quick break for station identification. We will be right back.
Leftovers again. It's time for something we haven't had in a long time. It's time for something right. It's time to make the right choice. OBBM Network TV is always the right choice. Choose right.
Hey, welcome back to A Badge of Honor TV with John and Sam and our special guest Scott with Hidden Battles Foundation. Scott, we were talking about your 22K, and that is, we do a walk the bridge every month, right? Where we have it across, it's actually global, and you find the connections. Getting off the couch, just walking, and you don't know how therapeutic that is. People don't want to sit on the couch and talk to a therapist every once in a while. They don't like that. So this is a modality that they enjoy. They walk, they're getting the exercise, they're getting the blood flowing, and they're communicating with different individuals, hearing different stories, and relating. So I commend you on your on how big this has grown.
And this leads right into Carry the Load, because Hidden Battles Foundation, like A Badge of Honor, we are nonprofit partners, and it's all about coming out over Memorial Day, this Sunday, Monday, connecting, whether you want to ruck, whether you want to carry the load for a reason, I think we've seen turnout gear to like a refrigerator. We've seen it all out there, but it's carrying somebody else's load that can't carry anymore because they're not with us. And Scott, it's going to be awesome to have you guys out there. What does being a nonprofit partner this year for Carry the Load mean to you all?
So I say very well, like, as first responders or heroes, we don't kumbaya very well. Like, we don't sit around the fireplace and talk about our feelings. But I think what we do as Hidden Battles is amazing, and what Carry the Load does is amazing, is we actually collaborate fantastically. We get the word out there of what other people are doing, especially when it's regional or it may be national. But we get the word out there so that we can say, hey, you know what? What you think is nobody's doing is everybody's doing. There is something out there for everybody. And when you start to collab and you start to share other people's missions, it actually gives hope to people, and it's actually going to pique the interest of somebody, whether it's, we just did a glass blowing class, and then we do equine therapy, and then we do rucking and kayaking and cooking classes for couples and meditation yoga. Like, we're not pigeonholing ourselves to one thing. The mission is the same. It's what we're drawing them out to get their interest, to get them into the community that we have. And with Carry the Load, it's getting a whole bunch of other organizations together that may do similar stuff, but different stuff. And that's how we're going to impact our heroes. We're going to do it by educating to what services are out there. And I think it's going to be a great partnership, because it's what we all need. We're all spokes in the wheel. You can't do it yourself. And if you think you can, you're going to fail. And I'm sorry to tell you that.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. We need to lean on each other. We need to grow and kind of in this nonprofit space together. Share ideas, collaborate, because it's not about being an island and trying to be the best. That's not the whole point. It's to get out there and help our heroes and we got to meet them where they are. And so if we don't have a resource, you may have a resource. If you don't have a resource, you can reach out to somebody else. And that's how we really do heal. If you want to register 22 for the 22, I got the website up for everybody listening on your favorite podcast app. It's hiddenbattlesfoundation.org. Really simple. Again, you can go on the website and connect with Scott, connect with the staff there. And don't go anywhere. Like, after the show, after A Badge of Honor TV, you can jump on and continue the conversation with Hidden Battles Radio Live. That's going to be right after. And Scott, real quick, we got to go to our last break, but how do people listen to the radio?
So we stream live on Facebook on the Hidden Battles Foundation Facebook page, but we also stream live on WSMN.live. where you can watch it, and you can actually go back and look at some of the older archived shows. But we also have the Hidden Battles Radio podcast on all platforms that you can find us. I will let you know too, you can do the 22 for the 22 virtually. I will send you a medal if you are doing it anywhere other than with us that day.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love it. Let's spread the word and do it nationally. Get out there if you don't do 22, that's okay. Do what you can.
Or you can.
I will send you a medal.
All right, and we'll take our last quick break, and Scott will send you a medal. Stay tuned, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Rise and vibe with your new elevated morning ritual. Meet Rise by Frequency. Frequency-charged nutrition. Rise is formulated with a blend of 7 different organic mushrooms, B vitamins, amino acids, and green coffee bean extract. Rise supports brain health, performance, and focus while enhancing mood, mental clarity, and energy. Enjoy the delicious mango lemonade flavor while giving your mind the nutrients it needs. Get charged up with Rise. Fuel your body and mind today.
Okay, so you hear it every week, Rise and Vibe with me and John. You know what Scott was just talking about this is the perfect segue, because you need to make sure that you're doing everything in a healthy way. And and Scott will attest to this, he had to jump to his radio show because they're live too, is that within the heroes community, whether you're a veteran or first responder, we've got these things called energy drinks, and they're not all created equal. That's why John and I love Rise, because there is no sugar. So it is keto friendly. It is also formulated with the mushroom blend. So you are putting good, healthy nutrients into your body, which fuel your mind. So you're connecting your mind to your body in a healthy way, instead of loading it up with sugar, taking you on what we call the roller coaster ride. Super easy way how you can rise and vibe with us. You can go to abadgeofhonorhealth.com, and we have put together packages. So whether you want Rise by itself or Rise with Source, which are the minerals that your body needs, whatever you need, abadgeofhonorhealth.com is right there for you. And it's a no-brainer. It's a mango lemonade flavor. We're coming into the warm season here. It tastes great. So go ahead and fuel not only your body with great tasting energy, but fuel the all-important mind. So like we said, Scott had to jump to do his radio show live. He is a wealth of information. hiddenbattlesfoundation.org. Again, listening on your favorite podcast app, hiddenbattlesfoundation.org. You can go over there. You are not struggling by yourself. We hear you at A Badge of Honor, Scott at Hidden Battles, and everybody on their staff. And go look. They have an incredible staff. And like I said, it's not about therapy. It's about plugging you into what you need and have a conversation to find out what you need. Sometimes it's as easy as you just need to get out on the water in a kayak, or be around a horse, or get off the couch and go for a walk, because you're boosting your endorphins with that amazing physical activity. John, you and I talk about that all the time. And go ahead.
Especially, I mean, even if you can't get out of the house, right? For some reason you can't leave the house, whatever it is, the TV is the worst thing for your mental health. Today, I shut all my TVs off and I just blasted the house with music. Music is great fuel for the soul. You know, it uplifts you, it stimulates you. Instead of that repetitive stuff that's on TV, turn that TV off, turn up your favorite music station, and listen to something that's going to stimulate your mind. Music works wonders in the body, not only in healing, but in mental health as well, man. Turn up TV, put the music on, dance around your house, walk around, clean, enjoy, feel vibrant. And you will see over less than a couple of days, you're starting to feel mentally better. You're starting to feel energetic, man. And that's what it's all about. And it's getting off the couch, stop watching that Judge Judy eating the bonbons, man.
Absolutely. And you know, we're in Memorial May, and the thing that we were talking about with Hidden Battles Foundation and Scott being nonprofit partners with Carry the Load. So we are everything that we do is leading right into the Memorial Day weekend. It is not about barbecues and mattress sales. It is about truly connecting and bringing back the true meaning of Memorial Day, remembering our heroes that are not with us anymore. And if the way Carry the Load works is get with Scott, because I think the relay's coming through his town. Do the 22 for 22, register. Again, he'll send you a medal. That's this Saturday. Carry the Load has 5 relays. They're walking 20,000 miles and meeting here on the 25th of May. That kicks off. That's a Sunday at Reverchon Park in Dallas. So if you are anywhere near Dallas, even if you have a couple hour drive, meet us in Dallas at Reverchon Park. The relays will all come in, and then we continue all of the festivities. We have a step off 2-mile loop, and then it continues all the way through the night. You don't have to walk through the night. If you want to, you will have people there supporting you along the way on a 7-mile loop on the Katy Trail. And then we wrap up the 26th at around 1 p.m. So it is Sunday and Monday, the 25th and 26th. If you cannot be in Dallas with us, you can still take part in Carry the Load. Go to carrytheload.org, and you can see all of the relays, and depending on where you live, see where they're coming through. Get out on the route, meet the folks that are actually doing a full relay from wherever they started all the way to Dallas. It is amazing, but you can get out there, and it's a place where you can meet a battle buddy. You can meet somebody, support them, or get support for yourself. And so you can walk there, and they have all the routes. Again, carrytheload.org. What we've done to make it super easy, because as you heard Scott say, you know, we're all in this nonprofit partner continuum of care partnership with Carry the Load. So when you donate to us, it goes through our organization to Carry the Load directly. And then they have a give back program so that we get to do the best of what we do in our programs, which is give back directly to our first responders and our veterans. And so it is important that we continue the fundraising effort, and we've made it very easy. Go to badgeofhonor.org. On the homepage, a pop-up will come up, okay? And it will have the direct donate link. You can read about how we are participating and donate directly $1. If everybody that's listening goes on, donate $1, and you can make a difference in the life of our heroes. And that's what it is all about. So badgeofhonor.org for all of our programming, again, to direct donate to Carry the Load. We've also got a lot of amazing resources on our page. Just scroll down. Responders Retreat. It's firstrespondersretreat.org. You'll see their logo on our website. September 22nd through the 26th, they've got their retreat, and it is almost sold out. I'm super happy for Liz and Joe. They were on the show a while back, and so you can find the show and find out all about them. But if you're a first responder, you want to get there, give yourself that couple of days recoup that you need. And it's giant peer support is the best way to explain it. It is well worth it. And hopefully we might actually be doing a show from there the first evening. So we'll see. We might be up there as well. To all of our first responders out there, we are praying for you every single day. You have got an enormous bunch of prayer warriors out there. Thank you for what you do, keeping our community safe. For all of our veterans out there, thank you for fighting the good fight that allows me and John to do a show like this every single week. And for our active duty personnel spread out across the globe, thank you for keeping our shores safe here at home. John, take us home.
Man, Scott couldn't have said it better, man. No, trauma has no value. Your injury has no value. Your mental health, we all have to take part in each other's mental health. Be that support team. Don't be that person that doesn't make that phone call, because the life you save may be somebody who's battling, you know.
Or your own.
Or your own. You know, you're going to want that help. God forbid you get down to it, you know, and Scott brought it right up to light, man. Absolutely. No matter who you are.
All right.
Peace.
Until next week, everybody. Take care.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBM Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBM Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495 today.